Conrad Akunga is my government name. I born in Mata, grew up in South B, lived in South B most of my life. My interests are many, but principally reading, motorcycles, and cycling.
Okay, so you actually ride. So when did you first ride? When did you first start riding a motorcycle and biking around Nairobi? How was that?
Motorcycle 2018 or 2018, I believe. It's gone very well, apart from an accident I had in 2020 where I happened to break this arm and that foot. But aside from that, it's all gravy. Got back on the horse or the motorcycle, and life is good.
So I guess after, when you were a young boy in South B, you're thinking about bikes, but also thinking about what to do next. What influence do you get into computers and tech in those early days?
As a matter of fact, I was very conflicted about what career to follow. At the time, my interests were creative writing, so journalism was an obvious path, electrical engineering, and computer science. So I really agonized what to pick next. It just so happened that when you are filling in those forms for university, the ones you fill in Form 4, at the time, computer science was speaking the loudest. So I filled that in, and the rest is history.
So before that first form choice, did you have an interaction with the computer? Did you have any role models?
Interaction, well, there was computer classes in our primary school, actually. Although we didn't do too much apart from learn to type and play a very, very old game called Letter Invaders. We should look it up. It's a very ancient game, but the exposure, set me on a path that I'm still on to this day.
Any coding or anything of the sort?
Coding, well, yes, actually. In Form 1, I believe, there was a database called DBase 3+, which I was introduced to. And the concept was, quite eye-opening for me, that you can, control the computer on your own terms. Because, playing games, you play on the terms of the game, but the exposure to DBase now piqued my interest even further.
What are your thoughts on Conrad and his career in general and him as a person?
I think he's one of the most established, one of the best software engineers, practitioners, I don't like that word, but in the light of the recent bill, software engineers in the country. He has built a business, he has worked as a software engineer, he has built teams. So just the idea of not just coding, but actually the practice and the science, and turning that science into products that customers love. And just thinking about the entire process, that's something I really admire about him. If you have read his blogs, that's pretty neat.
He was one of the first MVPs.
Oh yeah, he was one of the first MVPs as well. I didn't even know that, yeah. So that excellence in work, I think that's something that a lot of upcoming developers would benefit from learning from him. Just being excellent in your craft, being world class at what you do, because as it is, software can be done by anyone across the world, from a 16-year-old to a 70-year-old. Then tell us about your university time and how that has influenced your career so far.
University, I was there from, I believe, 2000 to 2004. I enjoyed it. And the exposure to, so many things. In terms of wisdom, there are some courses when I was in university that I thought were nonsense. To wit, the maths units, I think economics, communication skills, because when you're young, you're ignorant. So I'm here to do the computer things, and these are distractions. But now On hindsight, having grown very many teams and been exposed to very many industries, those are pivotal courses. So I urge anybody watching this who is starting in university, please take those courses very seriously. They will make a difference in your career.
Okay, so let's switch gears about blogging, social media, or whatever was called social media back in the day. When did you start? When did you start sharing your thoughts online?
Well, as I said, I had an interest in creative writing, so I had my own little magazine when I was in secondary school. And when I got to university, it was an obvious progression that online had more of an audience. So even before blogs became blogs, I would call it an e-zine, where I would put my thoughts and upload them online. There used to be a site called a Yahoo property called GeoCities, where I started off. So I would put my e-zine there, and it was there for many years. I think it was Blogger. There was a site called Blogger that Google subsequently bought that now enabled me to. I mean, it made the process much easier because before you had to worry about the layout and HTML and so on. But blogging and Blogger, really, the focus was just put your contents here. We will take care of displaying it. So that's where I really started in 2000, if I'm not wrong.
I think there was an explosion of there was a birth of a blogging community around that time. You can talk about the Kenya Bloggers.
Yes, the KBW Kenya Bloggers web ring. Well, it was just literally a bunch of Kenyan bloggers, and we in our blogs we had links to each other, hence the name web ring. So that was the early genesis. So we are so few, we literally knew each other, and we spread all over the world, some in the States, some in Kenya, and so on. And that community, we subsequently even met offline, for drinks and catching up and so on. So that was the earliest of the blogging communities that we began with.
Maybe you can also talk about how you've continued that process of sharing your thoughts online over the years.
Well, yeah. So blogging really, I did it for a very long time, and a mixture of things. There was topical content. I also used to do some short stories. I would capture my experiences, my real life experiences, like what happened in 2007. I actually went around, taking photos and documenting what I was seeing. So it's something I've always been interested in. Again, the strong, even to date, I still have that interest in writing. So that was really how I've proceeded with that. So now that each now has just morphed, because now blogging was still there. Then now social media came, and it became even easier to share your thoughts, because you open the Twitter and the 240 characters or whatever, and you say your thing and you blast it into the ether, as opposed to blogging took a bit more effort, because now you have to write the thing and edit it and look for photos and so on. So in some way, shape or form, I've always had an online presence for 22 years now.
Do people know you as Conrad, or do you prefer to wear a mask?
Well, for a long time, I went to great lengths to keep my online persona separate from me, principally due to some of the work I was doing on Mzalendo. But as you know, it is impossible to maintain that sort of separation indefinitely. So I no longer go out of my way to hide the fact that Conrad is that same guy online.
Okay. You mentioned Mzalendo. Maybe you can tell us about the genesis of Mzalendo and what's the passion or the thinking behind it.
Well, I can talk at great lengths about that, but the the short version is in the 2000s, I think it was 2005 or thereabouts. Parliament uploaded their website because they didn't really have a strong online presence. So they uploaded the website, and part of it was the profiles of the MPs. Now, the irony, today, even today, as then, some of the MPs had, how do you say this delicately, had modest qualifications. So some radio stations picked some out, and there was a show, morning, these morning shows. So they had quite a good time, dissecting some of those qualifications. So the parties mentioned were very aggrieved, and they made a lot of noise. So the parliament, or whoever was in charge of the website, took it down. I remember thinking, what do you mean? You're doing us a favor by telling us these things. Yeah. So as it happened, Ori was in town, Ori Okolo, my co-founder. So we are talking in Java, and we vented at length about this. Then we realized, this all over Kenya, people meet and have coffee, and they vent, and they vent, and they vent. Then they go home and wake up in the morning and go about their business, and nothing really, really changes. So what can we do to break that cycle? So I said, what, we will put our own version of that website. So we will, as it so happens, I had script the data from the website. So I just hobbled together something, and that was version 1 of Zalendo. So now, subsequently, we realized people, on top of knowing about the MPs, people would like to know. Back then, we had provinces and constituencies, provinces and districts and constituencies before the new constitution. People don't really know these things. So the next version, we put those up. Kenya has 7 provinces, whatever districts and so on. The next version was, it would be nice if you had a history of, who was the Minister of Finance in 1970. Can we get like a database of past MPs, past officials? So we did that. Then I also did, can we allow people to write comments on the MPs? Which is something that really, we don't think much about it now, but back then it was quite novel. So we did that, and to our surprise, we thought Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu would be the most active, but to our surprise, it was the most rural constituencies who are the most active in terms of engaging online. In fact, some even further met offline, as a community, and to put together their agendas and so on. Yeah, so that really was the genesis of Zalendo, and it is running to date. We have since handed over to a proper team. So there's a CEO and a team. We're just now trustees on the board.
I guess the use of technology in influencing governance or better governance is something that you're geared, but what is dear to you?
Oh yes. See, knowledge is power. Let's look at elections. You want to vote, so you show up at the ballot, and there are 15 names there, and and you, on what basis would you pick this guy or this other guy, apart from party and what? Even if you wanted to make an informed decision, there's nowhere where you can do that. So part of the things we're trying is like, listen, people are interested in the governance of their country despite appearances, but there are no resources for them. Even now, ask any man on the streets, what does a senator do? What is the difference between a governor and a senator and an MP in terms of their responsibilities? Even today, there are still that gap. So that's what we were trying to fill. And we have done that in many. We've experimented with many things. We have done Facebook, we have done Twitter, we have done videos, YouTube. There's a channel there where we had some videos. So the aim of the game really is which is the best way to reach people. And one of the things you have learned is you reach people where they are. You'd think that availing reports is enough, but no, there's a small demographic who actually read reports. Other people who won't. So how do you reach these other guys? So that's something we're still experimenting with, different ways of reaching people and influencing them.
So coming back to software and the university, post-university, how did you get into the working environment or into entrepreneurship?
In terms of working, I began working immediately I left university. Back then there was a 2-year gap between finishing high school and going to campus. My father told me, listen here, there's no way you will be sitting in the house for 2 years. Find something to do. So I ended up enrolling in Strathmore College. It was a college back then for those 2 years. And I began working there as a lab. It was called lab assistant, which is a fancy word of you're in charge of labs, but yet the job description says, and any other responsibilities deemed relevant by management. So that was a catch-all. So over and above taking care of the computer laboratories, I invigilated exams, taught on occasion when lecturers were not there, at least the computing packages, all sorts of things, and I really enjoyed it. Then I subsequently interned at a software company that I worked for almost half my career, called Virtual City. So I interned in 1999, I believe, and I've been working in software ever since. Entrepreneurship is a recent journey. I worked at Virtual City. Well, I began as an intern and rose through the ranks till I was running the engineering team, the quality assurance team, and the research teams. And then, I felt back then we did supply chain work back then. But I got to a point where I felt I'm no longer challenged after 10 years and working for so many different clients from doing also different things. I felt, there's nothing left for me here to do. So I said, now what don't I know anything about that I would like to take as a challenge? And fintech came up, and in particular, capital markets. So think of fund management and that entire sphere. So I said, I don't know anything about this, so let me try my luck here. And that's from 2010. And I started my own company, co-founded really with my partner, Vincent Talami. And we are still at it 11 years or 12 years later. So the fact that we're still around means I must be doing something right. So hopefully that continues.
What do you feel his impact on the ecosystem is or has been?
So obviously, there's a software industry. There's the work he has done across different companies. The mentorship he has had across teams. People who, yes, he might have lost them as part of his team at Innova, but they have gone on to other jobs and they have served well. So they speak well of him, and as it were, a lot of these companies that are coming in have benefited from his work. But then we think about his passion for governance, good governance, and marrying that with technology. The work he has done in setting up Mzalendo. That's something. If you follow him as using his alter ego, from think you can see the passion and he can be very direct, to use a polite word, in instances, but you can see the interest. It's not just it's not accusatory for being accusatory's sake, but it's about getting the right end result, especially from a governance point of view, and using technology as a means to that end. And obviously, the third area I think about is just sharing information and mentoring other people in general around business. He's one of those few people who understands both the technology side of business and the actual commercial side of business. The number of people who can do both comfortably and manage teams and write creatively are very few. There are very few I can think of. Going back to Virtual City, what are some of the key lessons? Having started as an intern, we hope you are paid.
I was actually, yes.
Yeah, what are some of those lessons that you got as an intern and rising up in terms of talent, growing talent, excellence in software development?
So many lessons. I think in no particular order. The first one was we need to have audacity. Audacity. What do I mean? There's no reason. If you look at the industry over the years, you'll especially, like, let's take an example like security. If you look at antiviruses and so on and so forth, you'll find many of those, the biggest companies are from Eastern Europe. Those countries there, Estonia, Estonia is the Skype, and Kazakh came from there. The AVG, Hungary, all those countries were very strong in the security sector. And there's nothing special really about Estonia or the Czech Republic or whatever. They have access to the same, especially now, we have access to the same content. There's YouTube, Udemy, university courses are online of MIT and so on. So there's no reason why we cannot compete at that scale. So my first lesson was, just dream big and, try the thing. You never know where it might take you. The other one was we can compete at global levels. The fact that we're in Kenya does not matter. It doesn't matter where you are anymore. What matters is what is between your ears. So we can write the best software if we applied ourselves. And that is how I've tried to lead my career for all these years. My third one was a teamwork. You can't do anything on your own. You need a strong team around you. Running out of lessons, but the other one would be joining dots. Again, I said when I was in campus, there were some courses I thought were nonsense, but now subsequently came to are very, very, very valuable. And that is what education is. It's not cramming things. Education is getting an appreciation of various concepts. Then as you're exposed more and more, you'll realize that many of these are actually connected. And that now unlocks a whole other set of values that you are unaware of. For example, did you know when a mosquito bites you, when you feel the thing, that is too late. The mosquito already bit you and drew your blood. The thing you are feeling is a substance that the mosquito left that is being broken down by your blood. So that knowing that on its own may not appear to be useful, but if you realize that many people, myself included, do not like injections, so an obvious application, if you can figure out a mosquito does that, we can have painless injections. So in that way, see, that connection now has made this knowledge valuable. So that is how I like to think about things nowadays.
I remember Virtual City won $1 million. I think it was Nokia back in the day. How do you correlate that with funding nowadays?
Well, that just again goes to prove what I was saying about audacity and competing at the global levels. Because that competition had entries from all over the world, the United States and China and Britain and so on. So the fact that Kenyans won it may have been a surprise to many people. It was a surprise to me because I've always believed Kenyans are capable of competing at global levels. So this was at Virtual City. So that was actually a grant that to help us take the application to the next level in terms of capacity building and so on and so forth. Yeah, so in terms of the correlation to funding, well, I guess depending on what sector you're working in, it may be possible to get grants aligned to that. I know MasterCard is doing a lot of work in this space, and others really, FSD and so on. So if you can find a grant in your sector, by all means, go for it. But the fact that we are demonstrated we can compete at global levels now attracts a lot of investment. As you know, there are a lot of companies setting up here in Kenya. A lot of startups that have started in Kenya and are doing pretty well. So I think it is, the world is our oyster, as it were.
So as you started Innova, were you thinking in terms of just a problem to solve, or did the thought of raising capital come into play? About Innova as well.
Well, Innova, we started 2010. So me and my co-founder Vincent were like, he's strong. His background is in the capital markets. Mine was in technology. So we're like, so actually, the first product we built was not the one we had planned to. The first product, what we had planned to do was a platform that analyzed portfolios, like stocks and bonds and deposits and so on. It would crunch some numbers and give you insights of, are you doing well? Should you be investing in this? And so on. That was the first idea. But now you need to pay bills. Given we don't have rich relatives, need to pay bills. So said, before we build this thing, let's build something else that we can use to pay the bills now. So we built a custody solution. So custody, think of custody is, if you are an institution like an SSF or a pension fund or a high net worth individuals, you obviously do not, that pool of money, you invest it somewhere, but you do not manage it yourself. You leave it to guys called custodians who do that. So you give them the instructions, buy this and sell that, and they do that for you. Those are custodians. So what we felt was a low-hanging fruit was, let's build a custody system first, because you have to collect this information anyway. Then on top of that, we will build this analytics platform. So at the time, our vision really was not about raising money, because at the time it was impossible to do so. I mean, nowadays it's a conversation that is very natural, but back then there was no way. No one would. Such talk was not really the norm. So we were forced to bootstrap by circumstances. So that's how we started off. And even to date, we are still bootstrapped. Now, the problem with bootstrapping is not so much a problem, but there's only so much you can grow when you're bootstrapping. We have plans to, so we have actually begun building now the platform, and so we plan to be Africa-wide with this platform. Even the custody platform, currently we're in 7 countries, but now we have hit a natural barrier where bootstrapping is not working. We need to scale to these other countries, and that looks in various ways, whether it's a local partner, whether it's setting up a local office, but all those will require significant outlay. So bootstrapping might not make so much sense now. So we're looking to get some capital now to ramp it up. So that is the progression that we have had over the years.
What have been some of the biggest challenges outside of that?
Well, the biggest challenge really is our environment. The business environment is very hostile. You have to deal with so many, let me call them concerned parties, ranging from KRA to the county government to an SSF and NHIF and then a national, I don't know, industrial training authority, and they're all these guys you have to deal with, who all expect, their pound of flesh. So it's not very entrepreneur friendly. The other one is access to cheap capital. Sometimes you could have you have signed a deal, so on paper it's not a lot of money, but now you need to pay rent and salaries with actual cash, and an invoice, not actual cash. But now the avenues of converting that to short-term liquidity are very difficult to come by. So capitalization is a huge problem we're dealing with. The other challenges would be, just the legal. Kenya is a low trust environment, so it's not enough that we can shake hands. I'll do the work and I'll pay you. You have to go to a lot of effort to protect yourself from players who are not, who might not live up to the end of the bargain. So that low trust environment again also hampers smooth business. I think those would be the main challenges.
What has been the most satisfying part of the journey as an entrepreneur so far?
Oh wow! Well, for me personally, it's just been the learning I've learned, both the capital markets, technology, people, growth, and so on. As Innova, the satisfaction really has been we have been able to grow our customer base across Africa. We have clients in Zambia and Tanzania and Uganda and Malawi and I think so is it Swaziland or Lesotho, one of those. So that's growth that we this is locally, not locally. It's something we built ourselves, and we were able to convince people across Africa that it is as good as, if not better than, what they would typically import. That really has given me quite some satisfaction. In fact, when we started off, it was very difficult because no one thought we actually did the work ourselves. They would you insist, no, just tell us who you are reselling for, who are you fronting for, and you would be like, no, it is ours. And it's only when you would change the thing, and they would see, maybe during a training, and they would have some comments in the morning, and during lunch you change the thing. After lunch, they see that that's when they now believe that you are the ones who actually built it. So that convincing people that we can compete at global level, that has been quite some sort of satisfaction for me.
Talking about competition and talent, how is that going?
That is, that is one of those things where, it is what it is. The fact that we have attracted a lot of investment here. So all these big boys have set up here, Microsoft and Google and Oracle and so on. And, they also are looking for talent. So there is stiff competition to get said talent. And it is, the reality is you cannot offer the packages that these guys do in terms of remuneration, benefits, and so on and so forth. So some churn is a part of life that you have to accept. It's always been there, even before they came. But now back then, it was different players. It was Safaricom and PwC and so on who would take all the computer scientists. Okay, not all of them, but a lot ended up there. So it's not really a new thing. Just that the face has changed, and yeah, it's tough because now you are in this situation where before you'd know that. I can retain guys for 3 or 4 years, which is our average, which is pretty good. But now with these new dynamics, it's almost impossible to retain people for that long. So the retention has shrunk. Then now there's the complication that when you get people from university, you have to invest some time in upskilling them and training them. Because what they learned there was concepts and theory. Now it is practice. So there's part of the time of retention you have to spend it in upskilling. So if the retention has shortened and you cannot shorten the upskilling parts, Zina in a dilemma where you could upskill people and then they leave immediately. And upskilling people is a cost. So the reality is you might get to a place where you ask yourself, is it worth it to follow this cycle, to upskill people, and they're never going to like recover that. So now introduces new realities where now you say does it make sense to do this anymore? Should we outsource our development to? And there are many places that do this sort of thing. So that normally would not have been a consideration, but now you are forced to consider it because of the reality. Ultimately, you have to return value and pay bills. So it's something you have to think about. Would I like to follow that route? No, because it goes against my beliefs. But at the same time, you might find yourself boxed into a corner. Do we invest in training people who will churn immediately, or in which case we can't do anything anyway, or do we bite the bullet and outsource this? So those are difficult conversations we have to start thinking about right now.
If you zoomed out outside of Innova at an ecosystem level, do you have any perspective on what could solve this problem or a path towards solving it?
Well, some thoughts. The first one, of course, which I want to reiterate, I'm not against this company setting up. It's a good thing that, it says a lot about the environment. It's a good thing that people have options when they leave university where they want to work. And the reality is, when you tell your mother you work for Microsoft, she'll be impressed. So it's a good thing. But so we don't want to discourage that. But I think for me the question is what are these big companies doing to build the ecosystem? What are they doing? You can't just take. You also have to give. What are they doing to promote a healthy ecosystem in terms of training, in terms of support for universities and colleges and technical colleges, in terms of even and entrepreneurs and startups that are in the ecosystem? If you are a big ship coming into port, you have to remember that there are little ships there. You can't just shove them aside. You have to. How do you work with the guys who are there for everyone's benefit? So those conversations, I think, should start of what can be done to support everyone, because I believe most of these things have solutions where everybody is a winner. I don't think it's a zero-sum game for either side, but they need to be granular conversations about how can we support each other in terms of developing a healthy ecosystem and a sustainable ecosystem. Because if everybody starts outsourcing, then the thing that made Kenya attractive is going to die off. And where will that leave the guys who are here? Yeah, so I think that something has to start from there.
And speaking about the individuals, the devs and people in tech and these ICT practitioners, given that it's current, what do you think of that?
I oppose that thing in every fiber of me. I think the ICT industry is unique in that it is one of the few where hobbyists can come in and flourish. Hobbyists, by hobbyists I mean people who They did not study it in any way, shape, or form, but are interested in it and have either taught themselves or gone for some course or so on. So those guys, so the hobbyist community has in many ways gone on to do a lot of great things. So how many people do you know that do their little Excel macros in the course of their work, or writing batch files, or doing their own websites? You see, nowadays, due to all this tooling, you can build a website without knowing anything about HTML, using Squarespace and Wix, WordPress, and all these things. You can now, with cloud technology, Azure and Amazon, you can build your own network or spin up a virtual machine and try your things without talking to IT. Yeah. So that is a feature, not a bug. So this bill is purporting to now, in its form, is going to put barriers to these guys, and that makes no sense to me. Kenya got where it is precisely because hobbyists and people interested in technology could build a career in it. So this bill is killing the goose that lays the golden eggs. Now, is it true that there are scoundrels and dishonest people and crooks in the industry? Of course, as with any other. But there are already plenty of mechanisms to sort these guys out. We have, there's the police, there's the CID, there's a contract law, there's the market. If you do a lousy job on your website, people will stop coming to you. So there are already plenty of mechanisms to take care of, errant players. So I don't understand what this bill is trying to achieve, but its side effects will really put a damper in this industry. So it should just be killed its entirety. Where else in the world do you try and regulate, such an industry? You might as well regulate poets and writers and paying and artists. Makes no sense.
What do you think the future holds for Kenya first, and then for yourself?
I think for Kenya, if that ridiculous bill is getting out of the way, I think Kenya has every opportunity to become a software, rather a country where software is one of the key sectors. There's no reason we can't become like Estonia or the other countries. We have all, you see, the bit again of ICTs, you don't require, land, you don't require oil, you don't require a lot of these things. You just require, something between your ears and a computer. So literally, the sky is the limit in terms of, so there's anyone can do it. So if you can just create an environment where such can flourish, people can set up all sorts of companies, not just software, but the ICT space as a whole. Security, cybersecurity, networking, database, consulting, technical writing, quality assurance. There's such a huge opportunity that doesn't really require much investment. So if we were to tap that, Kenya could actually be an ICT powerhouse globally. Because on top of all that, we are also have the good fortune that Kenyans speak very good English. So that is marketable everywhere. So we can compete globally, especially now remote work is becoming a thing. You can work for a couple in Australia if you wanted, while sitting in your house in South B. So we just need to harness that and put some structure and encourage people to venture off, to start something. I mean, it's nice that Microsoft and so on are here, but you see, why can't we start our own Microsofts? I think that should where the effort is. No offense to Microsoft, but even Microsoft used to be two guys in a garage. So same thing. Let us build a strong local ICT sector. For me, myself, my company, the goal is to be Africa-wide the next year or so. So the platform for analytics I was talking about, we have actually almost finished building it. We are piloting it in Zambia, about to start the pilot in Zambia and in Kenya, hopefully in Uganda, get some insights. And once we have, gotten the nuances of running such a platform, now we will just ramp it up Africa-wide. So that's something I'm quite excited about, because it would really, providing tooling to the all the players, from the investor to the fund manager to the custodian to the regulator. So all those are addressed by the platform in terms of real-time insights and analysis. So we feel that will change the game in terms of not just technology, but even in investments, where often people lack the insights. See, the data, the issue is no longer data. There's too much data. Insights from the seed data is where the problem is. That is what we want to tackle. So that is why I feel the future is that for me and for the company.
And last question, what would you tell your 20-year-old self? And also, is your bite worse than your back? As a room thinker.
Let's start with the easier one. What did I tell my 20-year-old self? Well, even when I was 20, I was very ambitious. So at least I don't have to tell my younger self to be ambitious. But I think what I'll tell myself is the value of learning. Not everything is immediately valuable. So those things you're studying might not appear to be valuable right now, but they will in the future. So just stick to it. Even if you don't see the value will become apparent as you grow older. Then also just be a lot more forgiving of your mistakes. You're going to make many mistakes, and such is life. You can't bite your own head off each time you make a mistake. And also just, enjoy where you are. But that should have been my first one. Enjoy where you are. The problem with there's a great man called George Bernard Shaw who said youth is wasted on the young. When you're in standard 1, you can't wait to go to standard 2. I want to be in secondary school so I can wear trousers instead of shorts. In secondary school, I can't wait to be in university. When I'm in university, now I'm a serious person. I don't have to wear this stupid tie, and I can do my own things. And then in university, I'm like, I wish I had my own. I wish I was employed. I don't have to stay in my father's house. And you're always rushing there, and you never really stop to enjoy where you are right now. And the time you realize this, often you will lack the ability to do so. So enjoy where you are in life. It's not to say don't look forward, but take some time to enjoy where you are. In terms of my back and my bites, I'm not sure I can give an impartial answer. I like to think that my back is worse than my bites. And so, I largely am the same guy. Largely, maybe more refined in person.